Unusual things I noticed that's going on in the US right now. What up, internet world? It's your boy Jermaine back with another video. This video I thought I would talk about a couple unusual things I noticed that's going on in the US. I mean, some of these things are for the good, but let's just talk about this for a second. So first off, if you guys don't know, the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. What exactly does that mean? Years ago, during the Vietnam War, when President Nixon took the US dollar off of the gold standard, we made deals with OPEC. OPEC is like the world's leader in oil. The deals we made with OPEC were, if you only sell oil in US dollars to every country in the world, we will protect you with our military. To them, they said, great, great. So to us, the Americans, this has made the US dollar the world's reserve currency. This has made the US what it is today, is literally the US dollar. In other countries, when they want to buy oil, they literally have to take their currency, purchase US dollars, and then buy oil from OPEC with US dollars. This always makes a demand for dollars, and this is why so many people around the world use the US dollar. This is why so many countries around the world use the US dollar as their currency, because they trust the US dollar. And certain countries like Zimbabwe, Panama, Ecuador, the US currency is the currency. Like, they don't have their own currency. So the dollar is a really big deal to the US. One thing that the US can do, we're the only country in the world that can print money and buy oil with the money that we literally just print it out of thin air. Other countries cannot do this. They literally have to produce something. They have to make something. They have to build something. They have to export something to the world to make money. But the US, we are in the position, we can literally print money out of thin air. This creates a big problem, because every other country in the world that holds US dollars, when the US prints $3 billion or $4 billion or whatever billions of dollars that the US prints, this actually decreases the dollar. So if you're a person that lives in Argentina and you don't want to hold Argentina pesos, let's say you want to hold US dollars because you feel that the US dollar is stronger, this is going to be a problem, because when the US literally prints money, now the US dollar is worth less money. So this is sort of a problem. And if you guys don't know, the US has been printing money like crazy. Like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even want to talk about how much money the US has been printing, because it's actually a very, very depressing thing to think about. Now on my channel, I really don't want to talk about politics, but I just want to point out something. North Korea threatened to bomb Hawaii and threatened to bomb California, and you know what? The US didn't really care, right? It was no big deal, because honestly, bombing California and bombing Hawaii is not that big of a threat to America. What's a real threat to America is Saddam Hussein saying, hey, I want to sell oil in euros, and within 4 days the US invaded Iraq, bombed his country, killed him, destroyed most of Baghdad. I mean, literally destroyed this country in like 4 days, just because we're like, look, you can't sell oil in euros, because if Saddam Hussein would have started selling oil in euros, this would have taken away a lot of demand from the dollar and would have made the euro stronger. Now all these other countries, instead of taking their currency and buying US dollars, they could just take their currency and buy euros. Or if they're from Europe, they could just use euros. So what does all of this have to do with what's going on in the US and the unusual things that I'm noticing that's going on in the US? Let's talk about this really fast. Okay, so the US is a country that is very, very spread out. You know, people love big homes. People love big cars. People love shopping. Consumerism is just a really big thing in the US. But over the past decade, consumerism is slowly on the decline. I mean, people are still shopping. People are still splurging. I know tons of people that still, you know, go buy new pairs of shoes like every week. Like, people still shop, but it's less and less of a thing. Nowadays, it's more of an iPhone. You know, people want $1,000 phones. So think about it. Before iPhones were really popular, you had more people spending money on things like fashion and shoes and clothing and hairstyles and stuff like that. Now, since everyone wants $1,000 phone, that has definitely taken a hit on retail, and now you see a lot of retailers closing throughout the US, but then you also see companies like Amazon on the rise, and Amazon's pretty awesome because you can just order so many things on your phone without even leaving the house. There's actually three main things I've noticed that's going on in the US. Okay, first off, this is very unusual, but bike lanes. Bike lanes are popping up all throughout the US. You guys may wonder, what does this have to do with oil and what does this have to do with the dollar? I'll get to that in a second. But bike lanes. I've noticed just living out in California, Santa Barbara, lots of bike lanes. Los Angeles, they're putting bike lanes in places that they would normally never put bike lanes. In places like Memphis, Tennessee. Now, Memphis, Tennessee, let's talk about Memphis, Tennessee for a second. Memphis, Tennessee is my hometown. Memphis, Tennessee is a place where it's really, really warm in the summer and it can be really chilly in the winter. Not the ideal place to ride a bike. Memphis receives a lot of rain throughout the year. There is no rainy season. It rains. It can rain any month, any week. It's a type of place where living there, I just would not want to ride a bike just because it's very spread out and also the weather just varies a lot. You know, I wouldn't want to ride a bike to work and I have to ride 10 kilometers or, 6 miles or so. And then I get there and then I discover that it's raining and now I have to ride my bike home in the rain. Like, if I lived in Memphis, I just would not want to deal with that. But I've noticed in Memphis, they've put bike lanes in Memphis. So when I travel throughout the US, I've noticed this for the past 3 years. When I travel around the US, I've noticed that bike lanes are popping up in places that bike lanes wouldn't normally be in the US. I've also noticed in a lot of American cities, they are taking where you have a street that is 2 lanes going one way and 2 lanes going the other way. They have turned that into 1 lane going this way and 1 lane going this way, and they have added like a really nice sized bike lane. This only makes me wonder, especially in places like Memphis, this only makes me wonder, are they preparing us for a day where more people will ride bikes and less people will drive? Now, how could this be? Well, you know how I was talking about the US dollar. If the US dollar is not the world's reserve currency, the US dollar could crash quite a bit. So what could this mean for the US? What could this mean for Americans living in the US? Well, first off, food would be much more expensive. Food is actually my next topic, point number 2. But food would definitely be more expensive, and driving a gasoline car would cost a lot. If the US dollar was not the world's reserve currency, we would not be exporting oil from other countries. We would probably be selling the oil that we can pull out of the ground to other countries for money, meaning that a lot of people in the US, if you have a gasoline car, you probably won't be able to afford to drive your gasoline car, meaning that you're going to just have to park your gasoline car somewhere else. Now, electric cars, on the other hand, interesting how electric cars have been around for decades. But just recently, electric cars are becoming very popular in the US. Electric cars are becoming crazy popular in the US. I'm telling you guys, electric cars is going to be the next big wave. It's going to be the next big wave. What it's really going to take is people to just drive an electric car. People think that electric cars drive like Priuses and they drive like hybrids. No. Electric cars drive so much better than your typical gasoline car. If you're watching this video right now, I recommend you to go test drive an electric car. Like, literally, stop watching this video right now, go to a dealership and just say, hey, look, I want to test drive an electric car. I've never driven an electric car. And just let them know, like, you want to drive an electric car. When you drive an electric car, like, let's say you drive an electric car for a week, you're not going to want to go back to a gasoline car, especially if you can charge it at your house. If you can charge it at your house, one thing I will say about driving an electric car, when you don't go to a gas station and you accidentally pull up to a gas station, you're going to think that, like, you're stepping back in time like 30, 40 years, no joke. Because the other day I pulled up to a gas station and I was thinking, what am I doing here? What are these people doing here? Why are they getting gas? Like, why are they not driving electric cars? Like, I thought it was so funny. Imagine a world where the US dollar is not the king currency. I can imagine a lot of people riding bikes to work because it's simply cheaper to ride a bike to work. I can imagine the electric wave picking up, not only from electric cars, but electric bikes, electric scooters, electric skateboards, electric scooters. Hey, there sure are a lot of electric scooters popping up all over American cities, like crazy, like electric scooters everywhere. And guess what? They're very, very cheap to ride. And even for these electric scooter companies, it only takes about 2 months for them to literally make all the profit that they invested into that electric scooter. So that's a very profitable business already straight off the bat. Food. Let's talk about food for a minute. All the oil that the US uses, majority of this oil goes to food production and transporting food from one location to the next. Now guys, we waste so much oil. This is what we do. We grow crops in one part of the US. We grow all of these crops. And we use oil to, cut the crops. And then we take all these crops, we put them in a truck, we transport these crops all the way on the other side of the US. We feed these crops to cows, right? And then we kill the cows. After we kill the cows, we take the dead cows, and then the dead cows are cleaned up and packaged and chopped up in all these nice looking containers. And guess what? I take another ride to the grocery store. And once I take another ride to the grocery store, that's when consumers buy, dead animals. And that's when they buy like meat and chicken and all sorts of pork. And, that's when they buy food like this. Believe it or not, it's very costly to transport food on 18-wheelers. A lot of 18-wheelers get about 8 miles to a gallon. And they're just transporting food from point A to point B and then point A to point B. And gosh, you know how much food a cow eats? Like a cow can eat like 100 pounds of food a day. Like that's a lot of freaking food, yo. That's a lot of food. And think about how many cows that are out there roaming around on certain farms. That's trucks and trucks and trucks and trucks and trucks every day transporting food to animals, only to kill the animals. And then once we kill the animals, we're going to transport the animals to point A to be cleaned up and slaughtered and be cleaned up and then packaged and then from point. So check this out. Veganism in the US is on a rise. For this year, 2018, veganism was on a rise by 300%. 300%. If more people went vegan in the US, guess what? The US would use a whole lot less oil. And this whole chain of growing food and taking it here and taking it there and taking it there, a lot of those stops could be cut off. Now you can just grow all these vegetables here, then you can transport it to this factory. Now you can cut down a whole lot of steps. You can grow vegetables and grow produce here, and then transport it to this factory here, and then from there you can transport it directly to the grocery store, and bam, you have food for people. So it's just a couple things I've noticed. Could they actually be preparing us for a day that the US dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency? And I like to look in the future, and I like to wonder what would the US look like if the US dollar was not a reserve currency. And I just see the US being a very different place. But as technology advances with electric cars, and if the US dollar is the world's reserve currency for the next 5 years, I would imagine that there would be a lot more electric cars in the US and possibly electric trucks in the US and electric buses in the US. More things will travel around the US using electricity, which is something that we can produce a lot in the US without buying oil from other countries. Also, if the US dollar lost its value or was not the world's reserve currency, flights would definitely cost a whole lot more than what they cost today, because I would imagine the price of oil would be a lot higher. And even if the price of oil was low, the dollar would probably lose so much in value that it would take so many dollars to buy a plane ticket to go anywhere in the world. So this is something else to think about. I'm actually not making this video to tell people to buy gold, but that is one way that you can hedge against the dollar crashing. I'm also not making this video to make people nervous about the US dollar and nervous about the US economy. I'm just making a video talking about things that I've noticed around the US and different parts of the US, and it just looks like that they are preparing us for a future where the US dollar may not be the world's reserve currency. And for most Americans, most Americans can't even imagine what that would look like, what that would be like. this would be a very different country, because we don't really make a lot of things in the US. A lot of things that we use in the US comes from other countries. And I mean, right now, if you want to build a house in the US, the prices have increased because of the tariffs. But if the US dollar lost like 60%, oh man, if you want to build a house in the US, it would cost a whole lot more to go to Home Depot, because a lot of things in Home Depot are made in China. And with the dollar being a whole lot weaker, it would cost more to purchase those cheap things from China. And if we wanted to purchase things from like countries like in Europe, oh my gosh, it would just be insane if the US dollar would lose value. So these are just some of the things I'm noticing. I mean, gosh, the price of food would go up dramatically, and foods that are out of season, that, you know, are a luxury to eat in the US, we would not be eating foods that are out of season, because foods out of season comes from other countries, and that means that those fruits have to be shipped here and they have to travel here, which uses oil. Oil is very, very important. That's why the electric wave is on right now. That's why the electric wave is on. But anyway, guys, I just want to talk about unusual things I've noticed in the US. Like, yeah, some unusual things that I've noticed that are going on. And yeah, jump on the whole, I guess, the green wagon, or go vegan, or go minimalist, or buy gold, or I don't know what this video is all about. But anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace out, internet world. Bye-bye, YouTube.